أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بني آدم قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا ولباس التقوى ذلك خير ذلك من آية الله لعلهم يتذكرون صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah 7, Ayah 26, O children of Adam, we have provided for you clothing to cover your nakedness and as an adornment. However, the best clothing is the clothing of righteousness. This is one of Allah's bounties, so perhaps you will be mindful. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Islam for Europeans. Eid Mubarak. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fast and our prayers. And I wanted to make this episode basically a follow-up to my previous episode about mosque architecture, which you can watch on this channel. And please like and subscribe to Islam for Europeans. So in that previous video, I argued that masajid or mosques should be built in, or at least incorporate, the architectural style of the region in some form or another, at least, to show that Islam is compatible with the cultures that do not have an existent Muslim population amongst their people. Okay, so one of the advantages of this approach is that if you are basically reaching an audience that may never go to a mosque, right? So if the mosque appears as foreign to the people, it is going to perpetuate the idea that Islam is only for foreign populations. As you know, as I said in the previous episode, there is no set obligatory architectural style for a mosque. There isn't even an obligation to have a minaret or a dome, really. The Prophet, peace be upon him, his mosque was built out of bricks and mud and palm leaves, right? So we can extend this to dress as well. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about. So, going back to the whole architectural style, the people who drive by a mosque, every day, maybe it's on a busy intersection. Many of these people will never go to a dawah booth. They may never talk to a Muslim. They may never watch, a video from a Muslim influencer. But if you are symbolizing or trying to symbolize this cultural compatibility, that Islam is compatible with all cultures, by adapting a mosque style that is in the style of the culture you're trying to give dawah to, you can communicate the message of Islam without saying a word. So basically, the design of the mosque can work either for or against the Muslim community based on the design. Now, when we come to the actual dress of the Muslims, for both converts and born Muslims, this is similar to the whole argument about architectural style of the masajid in many ways. Except now, in this particular case, especially as converts, you are now a walking billboard, right? So, now usually when we debate about, Islamic dress in the discourse, especially on social media, like YouTube and things of that nature, whether that is between Muslims, two Muslims talking or discussing or debating, or whether that's Muslims debating vis-a-vis the anti-Islam right, it's all about, most of the discussion is around if the clothing basically conforms to the Sharia or not. Right? There's no discussion about what the clothing actually means, or what cultural valence it has. Between Muslims, the debate might be, is niqab fard, or should fard being obligatory? Or a question might be, should Muslim women wear niqab in Western countries where it's banned, or should they make hijrah? Or, is it okay for Muslim men to walk around in, but not pray in shorts? Should Muslim women be wearing half hijabs if they're not that practicing until they become strong enough to wear full hijabs, or should it just be an all or nothing attitude? Either just wear full hijab or nothing at all. When it's Muslims debating the anti-Islam right about Islamic dress, most of the questions are like around, is hijab oppressive? Was hijab traditionally part of Western society? If you have a question about, the style of Islamic dress, which we're going to talk about briefly, the argument might be something like, should Muslim men wear dress from back home or conform to standards of Western dress, i.e., jeans and a t-shirt? Right. So, really, to my knowledge, there has never been a discussion on the issue of converts wearing the traditional dress of their ancestors from centuries ago when they dressed more modestly and conservatively as a way to show that Islam is for all peoples, is particularly among European populations, right, in the Anglosphere. So you see this among African American Muslims. I remember that one Black American brother was saying that both, an African American wearing a suit, a Muslim wearing a suit with the bow tie, like Malcolm X, or the previous Nation of Islam, or Worthdeen Muhammad's group, and also wearing the maybe traditional African dress, different African countries, are all part of the African American Muslim experience. It means something. It incorporates something from your culture that shows that Islam is part of their history, basically. And you even see non-Muslim African Americans wearing similar style clothing, right? So it's not as much of a shock, to their family and their friends if they do, end up converting to Islam. There was also a special on African Muslims in South Africa that I saw recently on RT, where all the African Muslims wear their traditional dress from their tribe, and it was Sharia compliant, and it did not conform to the South Asian dress of the majority Desi Muslim population currently living in South Africa. But I guess one of the main questions is, in the West itself, why is this not even thought of as a potential solution to a lower anti-Islam sentiment, for the converts themselves, so they feel that they're not, completely changing their identity, and B, to lower anti-Islam sentiment in the Anglosphere as a whole. And I'm sure there's other advantages to this as well. But I think delving into why this was never popped into people's heads that this might be a good idea, I think one big reason is that almost all mainstream Islamic influencers on social media, with a few exceptions, have only ever argued and debated the anti-Islam right. So they are largely unaware of the dissident right, if that's what you want to call them, or maybe paleo conservatives whose opinions on Islam vary from neutral to even positive, right? So the by and large, people in the dissident right, or the anti-liberal right, they wouldn't have a problem with this idea at all. White European converts want to wear the clothing of their ancestors and marry each other. Hey, wonderful. Most people in the dissident right would have no problem with this idea. In fact, they think it would actually be a positive thing. But since the Muslim Dawa elites are only really aware of the Jordan Petersons, the Tommy Robinsons, the Sam Harrises, the David Woods, and the Douglas Murrays of the world, who have gotten all the mainstream attention. Meanwhile, the dissident right has been completely deplatformed by and large. The people I mentioned previously, they hate Islam altogether. These people are total liberals. So, of course, the whole idea of pitching Islamic style Euro traditional dress, it doesn't mean anything to them. So, that probably why people don't even bother, debating these issues. But I guess going farther with this idea, why is it that the, European converts, whether that's in Europe proper or the European diaspora, do convert to Islam? Why do they not implement this idea, at least on Eid and Jummah prayer? I mean, well, first of all, as we stated before, there's no concept of a European Muslim identity anywhere in the discourse, right? Converting to Islam as a white person is normally seen as a complete rejection of one's identity, because, you can go into kind of start to explain why. I mean, Christianity was the seat of, the top three Christian, Europe was the seat of basically the top three Christian denominations, Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox. They've been mutual enemies between Islam and Christianity for centuries. Unless you're talking about countries that have European countries that have a large Muslim population like Bosnia, Albania, and Chechnya. It's not really part of our culture. It would be a completely new idea. It doesn't even exist as a concept in people's heads. And in the current zeitgeist, the left, the woke left, they consider anyone of European descent, who wants to hold to tradition as inherently evil, that we should feel nothing but shame about our history. Even if our ancestors were, Mennonites or 20th century Italian immigrants who had nothing to do with slavery or colonization, And of course, converts in the current zeitgeist, they tend to lean left politically anyway. So there's more of a resistance to hold this idea as a whole, really. Secondly, and just more practically, these type of outfits are very difficult to find, if not impossible. It's not like you can walk into an Islamic dress store and ask the sales clerk, I want to get an 18th century style European hijab from the UK or France or wherever. And usually when these sisters do convert, the Muslim community is very nice. They get all these free hijabs and Islamic clothing, but these hijabs, they carry no cultural valence whatsoever. Unless you're talking about the kafaya or things like that. There's, and even if it does, it doesn't carry any cultural meaning, in the Anglosphere. Right. And thirdly, most European converts, and I mean this with all sincerity, when they do convert to Islam, they're looking for a new Islamic identity. And, wearing clothes from another part of the Muslim world, that's seen as almost, an expression of one's faith. And it helps you get, gives you all of these like brownie points with many different Muslim communities. It helps them fit in more. And many, Muslim sub-communities, particularly Pakistanis, they love it, absolutely adore it when converts dress completely differently than the West, and in particular in their clothing, right? Many converts, when they do convert to Islam, they go to a Desi mosque, they'll get, shalwar kameez, and if they wear it, you see these giant smiles on these brothers' faces. Now these converts, God bless them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, keep them on the straight path. But I think for many of them, they're not really thinking long game here. Like wearing it on Eid and Jummah prayer, okay, fine. But when you're wearing it all the time, I think they're not really thinking about, the overall image of Islam to their own community, their own family, their own community. So, like for example, when Brother Jesse, wears a shimach or shalwar kameez, he's not thinking Jenny down the street is thinking about converting to Islam as well. But if her family sees me in this dress and thinks it's too foreign, that might make Jenny's conversion to Islam more difficult. They're not thinking that way. And I think we don't think this way because we as converts, we normally convert to Islam as individuals. We don't have this wolf pack mentality, to improve the status of the converts within that group, like our African American brothers and sisters, like our Latino brothers and sisters. So, converts who do, dress like Arabs and Pakistanis, they dress this way because they want to resemble the Muslims, they want to fit in. And, wearing a quote unquote new uniform, will individually, they think in their head, it's going to get them more hasanat, more good deeds. They might think that if they wear it, they think it's simply, some of them just wear it for comfort. And again, there's nothing wrong per se. It's not haram or anything. And of course, very few born Muslims at the masjid will never advise against the convert to these new brothers, because they don't fathom sometimes the negative effect that it may have on the convert and his greater community. Right. And finally, like I said before, a lot of people, when they do convert to Islam publicly and join the Muslim community, they've already, converting to Islam has no consequences for them normally because for those who are interested in Islam, and it does have social consequences for them to converting, they're probably not going to take their shahada publicly, right? So usually a lot of these converts, A, have a good relationship with their family to begin with, so their family doesn't care if they dress like an Arab or Pakistani, or B, maybe their family's already rejected them, and then wearing this kind of clothing is just like the last straw, basically. So, but I mean, us who've been Muslim for a very long time, many of us know that we get these converts and they're very zealous, and they want to go in all the way, want to start speaking with an Arabic accent, they want to dress like a Muslim from another part of the world. A lot of them get completely burnt out after a year or so, and because they're trying so hard to assimilate. Right now, bring this all together, just imagine if European converts to Islam had they collectivized as a thriving sub-community while still belonging to the greater Muslim community. If they'd done this since the 1990s in the West and worn the traditional clothing of their ancestors that conforms to the Sharia, this would have had several benefits for the entire Muslim community in the West. The argument from the anti-Islam right is that when it comes to Islamic style dress, is that the Muslims, this is their argument, it's not what I'm saying, they're not adhering to Western standards of dress. When they wear turbans, shalwar kameez, thobes, niqabs, or niqab, there's two arguments that they make. One is that, it's not Western in the sense that they're not showing enough skin, and this we reject completely. I mean, Islam, we have values, we have morals, and we don't dress like we want to show off our bodies. So that's one thing. And the second argument is that it's something foreign. It's not from the West. It's culturally alien, basically. However, if the converts themselves are seen as wearing the traditional dress of their ancestors, this would completely flip the script on traditional ancestral clothing that Muslims wear on special occasions. In that case, trad dress would instead be seen as a rejection of the global monoculture. And in that sense, the greater Muslim community from different cultural communities, it would take the heat off them. They would, the Westerners would look at that and go, they're wearing this dress because they don't want to conform to the global monoculture, which has stripped us basically of all of our, and that has basically left us rootless. Because today's clothing, if you look at it, Western style clothing, it is culturally rootless. The jeans, this shirt, which is just basically horizontal lines. It carries no valence to a culture. It's what Alain de Benoit defined as massification. It's clothing that anyone can wear, and it basically strips us of our identity, right? Now, I do know that in the Muslim world, Muslims can tell what country other Muslim men and women are from, basically based on the clothing that they wear, even the style of their hijab. So when you're talking about style of dress, it doesn't just have to mean the clothing itself, but basically how you wear it, right? So as long as it is compliant with the Sharia, the clothes from their ancestors, no matter where they come from, is applicable. So, and again, I would recommend this approach to converts wearing Sharia compliant clothing from their ancestors, no matter where they come from. First Nations, Latin Americans, Northeast Asians, these groups have very beautiful clothing, very beautiful designs, and it would be very easy to make this compatible style dress. It's just a matter of getting Muslims to think differently about this. Then once we really change the game, then we can have this style of clothing to Islamic style dress shops that already exist in the West anyway, right? So yeah, I just think it's a solution to so many things that that we haven't really even thought about, and even I myself didn't think about this until recently. And finally, on a last note, I do know that, for example, in Bosnia, there are clothing designers that create actual European style Islamic clothing, and that the women's dress, it has art designs from European painters like Monet, El Greco. There's a company called Keften in Bosnia, and it was featured in Jan Lyer's series A Law in Europa. If you want to check that out. So, but yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for supporting us at Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fasts and our prayers during the month of Ramadan. And that's all my time for today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.